limit as x goes to 3 of x squared minus 9x plus 18 divided by 1 over x minus 1 over the square root of x plus 6. The first thing we're going to try is plugging a 3 in for each of the x's. That'll give us 3 squared minus 9 times 3 plus 18 over 1 over 3 minus 1 over the square root of 3 plus 6. 3 squared is 9. Negative 9 times a 3 is a negative 27 plus 18 all over 1 over 3 minus 1 over the square root of 3 plus 6, which is a 9. 9 minus 27 is negative 18 plus 18 over 1 over 3 minus 1 over the square root of 9 is a 3. So we have negative 18 plus 18, which is 0, over 1 over 3 minus 1 over 3, which is 0, the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. We will need to rework this. Since we have a fraction involving the variable x in some way, added or subtracted together with at least one other term, we can try the common denominator method. So we're going to focus on the fractions that are in the denominator and get a common denominator between those. Their individual denominators are x and the square root of x plus 6, so the common denominator will be the x times the square root of x plus 6. We're going to multiply 1 over x by square root of x plus 6 over square root of x plus 6. And we're going to multiply the negative 1 over the square root of x plus 6 by x over x, so that we can get these over a common denominator. Limit as x goes to 3 of x squared minus 9x plus 18 divided by, and we will have, multiplying the numerators, square root of x plus 6 times 1, multiplying denominators, x times the square root of x plus 6, minus, multiplying the numerators, 1 times x is x, over denominator x times the square root of x plus 6. We've now put them over a common denominator, and we can combine them over that common denominator. Limit as x goes to 3 of x squared minus 9x plus 18 divided by the square root of x plus 6 minus x over its common denominator of x times the square root of x plus 6. Our next step in a common denominator method is to reciprocate the denominator fraction and multiply it with the numerator. So let's make that happen here. So we have the numerator, which is x squared minus 9x plus 18, and we're going to multiply this by the reciprocal of the denominator fraction. Flip it upside down, and we then multiply it. If you want, you can put the numerator fraction over a 1, since it had no denominator, but it's equivalent to having been over 1. And we multiply by this, reciprocal of the denominator. Overall, that gives us limit as x goes to 3 of, in the numerator, x squared minus 9x plus 18 times an x times the square root of x plus 6. In the denominator, that will give us 1 times, and we therefore get the square root of x plus 6 minus x. We still have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. We haven't removed that just yet. In the numerator, it's happening because of this trinomial quadratic. That's making 0. In the denominator, it's happening because of this root combination. And so because it's happening due to the root combination there, we will have to continue with a root conjugate method. We're going to form the root conjugate, which is the same two terms in the root combination, but opposite sign between them. And we're going to multiply the numerator and denominator by this root conjugate. in the numerator, we do not have a root conjugate pair, so we're not going to actually FOIL that out. We're going to keep that factored. So I will just write it as multiplying it, but in a factored format. In the denominator, we do have a root conjugate pair. We will FOIL it. First, root of x plus 6 times root of x plus 6 will give us an x plus 6. Outside, root of x plus 6 times a positive x will be a positive x root of x plus 6. Inside, a negative x times a root of x plus 6. Negative x times the square root of x plus 6. And then last, negative x times a positive x is a negative x squared. The outside and inside terms are equal value and opposite sign after root FOILing, and will cancel with each other. We now have limit as x goes to 3 of x squared minus 9x plus 18 times an x times a square root of x plus 6 times a square root of x plus 6 plus x. All of this over a negative x squared plus x plus 6. We still have 0 over 0. A root conjugate method does not change the 0 over 0, but it turns it into a new form that can be reworked a different way. We have power functions. In the numerator, we're getting 0 because of this, and in the denominator because of this. We will need to factor each of those. The one in the denominator, it might be best to factor a negative 1 out of first. Before attempting to do the trinomial factoring of it. So that will be my next step. I will factor a negative 1 out of it, so that I have a positive x squared, a negative x, and a negative 6. Now, because x is going to 3 here, when I go and trinomial factor these, I expect to find an x minus 3 as one of its factors that can help with checking our factoring. So I have in the numerator an x and x. I need two numbers that multiply to be a positive 18 and add to be a negative 9. It sounds like an x minus 3 and an x minus 6 will take care of that. We also have the remaining terms. I will write those down exactly as we see them. In the denominator, we need two numbers that multiply to be a negative 6 and add to be a negative 1. It sounds like negative 3 and positive 2 will take care of that. And there's the x minus 3's as expected. Those can cancel out. And that means we have now put it into a form where it should no longer be 0 over 0. And we should be able to plug a 3 in for all of the remaining x's. So the denominator is simply negative of the quantity of x plus 2 at this point. Plugging a 3 in for all of the x's will give us a 3 minus 6 times a 3 times the square root of 3 plus 6 times a square root of 3 plus 6 plus a 3 divided by the negative of 3 plus 2. 3 minus 6 is a negative 3 times a 3 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 9 plus 3, all divided by a negative of 3 plus 2, which is a 5. Negative 3 times a positive 3 is a negative 9. Square root of 9 is a 3. Square root of 9 again is a 3, so we have 3 plus 3 there. I'll divide it by negative 5. Since the numerator and denominator are both negative, we can cancel the negatives out and just make them both positive at this point. So we have a 9 times a 3, which is a 27, times a 3 plus a 3, which is a 6. I'll divide it by a 5. 27 times 6 is 162, divided by 5.